2021 at 6 p.m. If we could please have our deputy clerk take the roll.
Councilmember Wilden.
Here.
Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Kurat.
Here.
Councilmember Naren.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hulse.
Here.
Mayor Linsky.
Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next is a brief summary of current events by the mayor, city council, and/or city manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during the summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. Council members, do we have anything to report? Councilmember Wilden?
Yes, I attended the, last Thursday, the Community Coalition meeting of nonprofits. And it's now going to be called the Verde Valley Coalition of Nonprofits. And it was a great meeting. It was the best one we've ever had. I don't know if anybody's familiar with 211, but it is a state organization that helps in all avenues of nonprofit help. Human services, health needs, emergency food, financial, housing, volunteering, you name it. What they've come up with, we had a presentation, they've come up with a, Access is paying for it. It is free to all of our nonprofits. And I'm going to hand this out to the council. What it does, it's bringing the system locally, and all of our nonprofits can sign up and they can keep track of their own referrals. Referrals come in, referrals go out, and it's going to really enhance the database that Cottonwood has for nonprofit assistance. And it's an excellent program. It's free.
Awesome, thank you. Any other, please?
I know that myself and Councilmember Kurat went to Thunder Valley Rally. I went Friday night for a while and Saturday night for a while. Everybody did a great job. So great job to the staff. I can't imagine what it takes to put that thing together. And like I told Mr. Teal there, that I went by Monday and it looked like nothing had ever happened there. So yeah, they put it up, tore it down, had a great event. I think it was quite successful. I actually saw Ron working. So that was good.
Well, good. Brought out the best in him. That's good. That's good. All right, any other council members? No, go ahead, sir.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor, Council. Yeah, TVR was a great event. We'll bring back a recap. Mr. Till will bring that back sometime in the near future to report out on how we did financially and in attendance and all the things that Council usually like to know about the events. But my update for this night, join us on October 5th for National Night Out from 4:30 to 7 p.m. at the Cottonwoods Kid Park over there at 350 South 12th Street. National Night Out is an annual community building campaign that promotes police, community partnerships, and neighborhood camaraderie to make our neighborhoods safer, more caring places to live. This event is free, and we invite the public to come out and join us. As a reminder to council, our council meeting that night will start earlier, and I believe 4:30, so that we can get out in time to go over there and enjoy the evening. Parks and Recreation will be working with the Rotary Club of the Verde Valley this upcoming Friday, September 25th, to hold their annual duck race. Historically, they hold this event in coordination with the Dead Horse Ranch State Park and the Verde River Days. However, with the cancellation of that event, Parks and Recreation offered to step in and allow for use of the lazy river of the Recreation Center's indoor pool to help keep the fundraising going. They will be dropping 100 plastic ducks from all the entries at the starting line and race them down the lazy river to the finish line. The first 3 to cross are the winners. Mingus Union High School swim team will be conducting their first annual 24 Swim-a-thon on October 1st and 2nd. The event will kick off at 4 p.m. on Friday and run through 4 p.m. on Sunday. Mingus Union High School will provide the lifeguards for the duration of the event, and lap swim will remain open on Friday, with Mingus Union School occupying 2 of the 8 lanes for their fundraiser. There are options to help support this fundraiser. Option 1, donate a flat amount to the team. No extra money is paid per swimmer's laps. Option 2, pledge a dollar amount per lap swam. Example, if you pledge 25 cents and our swimmer swims 100 laps, you donate $25. If you'd like to donate, please contact swim coach Gretchen Westbrook at GWESBROCK@MUHS.com. Mr. Mayor.
All right, very good. I failed to mention that Councilmember Crott and I'm sure other council members were able to attend the September 11th ceremony that Chief Sotman put on, and it was just an exceptional, very thoughtful ceremony. I wanted to say thanks to the chief and his team and for all the work that went into putting that event on. Thank you. Okay, next is call to the public. This portion of the agenda is set aside for the public to address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda for discussion. However, the council cannot engage in discussion regarding any item that is not officially listed on the agenda for discussion and/or action, and comments are limited to a 3-minute time period. And we have 3 forms that I've received. If there's anyone else out there in the audience this evening that would like to address the council, you can find forms in the back and fill them out, and we'll get you up here to speak to council. So first up is, and I apologize if I'm going to butcher your name, but it's Patrice Romer? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Patrice Romer here. I wanted to, may I step forward and I give you these
Sure.
handouts? I'll take them for you next week. Oh, sure. I only have 2 pictures because of the cost of ink. But my issue is they're going to put the sidewalk in up the north side of Fir starting in November. I live on Fir and Ochoa, the northeast corner. I have the easement that is on that corner is about 3 feet high. The sidewalk is proposed to be 6 feet, opposed to the 4 feet that goes below Monte Tesoro a block away. Now on Monte Tesoro on the northeast corner is a 4-foot corner, cement corner already installed. My proposal is to put a 4-foot instead of a 6-foot sidewalk from Ochoa to Monte Tesoro, which is only my orchard fence and one other house, which the man of the house is in the hospital and couldn't comment. Now, the reason I'm asking this is if the bulldozer, whatever it is, digs the 3-foot and goes down another foot to pour the 6-foot concrete. If you see the picture, and I only brought 2, you'll have to share, from the white tall sprinklers all the way to the corner is the 6-foot easement that would be eliminated, in which case the 60-foot deodara that is on that corner would have a terrible time with the cutting of the roots. So I'm trying to save the tree, which I've been told is, when I didn't have to hook up to the sewer because of these trees, were worth at the time in the 90s or whenever we did that, was $40,000. So according to, I believe it was Tim Costello at the time. And so my issue is not cutting the trees' roots, at least another 2 feet, give it another 2 feet to give it a chance of survival. I have talked to Janice Montgomery, who is the head of the gardening club here. She agrees with me that it would damage the tree. I also did research online, and I've also seen that it could damage the roots. So this is my idea, my proposal. I'm trying to save, I have 6, just in the front yard, these massive trees that the airport actually uses to guide them into the airport. They're that tall. So this is that I've been guardian for my mom and I 35 years. So this is my request.
Okay.
Thank you
Ms.
so
Romer.
much.
Thank you.
I will make one quick response for staff direction. This is coming back to council, the sidewalk priorities for this next year. I believe it'll be the last meeting in October before we actually move forward with the FIR project for final approval by City Council. So I'll make sure, I know staff is aware of this and has been working with the homeowners in the area to secure the right-of-ways needed and those kinds of things. So I'll make sure our Public Works Director mentions this up in his presentation. Again, I believe it's going to be the second meeting in October.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, next up we have Ms. Donna O'Daniel. And we can bring a mic to you, ma'am. Just stay right where you are. Thanks, Jack.
Mayor Linsky and city councilors, my name is Donna O'Daniel, and I'm a resident of Cottonwood, Arizona. Last week, President Biden told Americans that we need to build back better. What is Build Back Better, and how is it related to the Great Reset, which was announced to the world in the summer of 2020? Globalists tell us that we need to build back better as we recover from COVID so we can be prepared for the Great Reset. Both globalist plans have the same goal: promoting global governance by an unelected group of elites for our own good, of course. Klaus Schwab, founder and chairman of the globalist World Economic Forum, WEF, is pushing for a great reset of the world, a political and cultural revolution that has no place for locally elected city councilors or mayors or local police. The WEF's globalist billionaires are planning our lives for us. Schwab stated that, quote, "The radical changes in lifestyles we endured under COVID must now translate into stronger and more effective governments, which can control our food, including bugs, forests, gender issues, mobility, human rights, manufacturing and employment, global health, economies, basically all areas of our lives, including our thinking and behavior. And we will be happy," they tell us, or not. The WEF stated that the goal is to take away ownership of all property and place it in the hands of a world government. Do you own a home in the beautiful Verde Valley? You won't if the plans of the Great Reset are implemented. All this to happen by the year 2030. Agenda 2030 and its sustainability goals is another globalist scheme to control us. Socialist UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is a key booster of the Great Reset. But does it seem wise for Americans to give power to a world government? Of course not. I have given each of you a copy of an article titled "The Great Reset: Deep State Globalists Taking Over the World and You," to alert you to the dangers of these initiatives. The nationwide John Birch Society, of which I am a member, is working to defeat these dangerous schemes and restore and preserve our Constitution. I trust you will want to do likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Daniel. Next, we have Mr. Barry Jones.
Honorable Mayor, Council, I want to speak tonight on Article 6 of the Constitution and your high privilege and duty to be defenders of that Constitution. It is plain from that article and from the framers' own writings that they expected that, quote, "the senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures, and here all of you are, all executive and judicial officers both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath of affirmation to support this Constitution." In other words, you have equal standing with every officer of the United States. The same article also makes plain that the supreme law of the land is the Constitution itself, all treaties made under the authority of the United States, and all laws passed by Congress which are made in pursuance of the Constitution. The Federalist Papers explain that the framers anticipated laws being promulgated which would not be in pursuance of the Constitution. One of their remedies was to make all officers, including you on this council, equally responsible to not recognize any violation of the Constitution. While it is true that wise city planning and maintenance, the fixing potholes sections of your duties, take the bulk of your time and attention. Nevertheless, your highest and most solemn duty is to be the guardians of the Constitution on behalf of we, the people. By taking the constitutionally mandated oath of your office, you obligated yourselves to defend against any usurpation of power by other governmental entities or agencies. Many have the false assumption that the federal government is the supreme authority in our system of governance. Some seem to be under the impression that the oath of local office should read, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will be subject and subservient to the federal government, and that I will support and defend all laws passed by Congress, the Supreme Court, or the President of the United States, never questioning their authority to legislate in all matters whatsoever. My hope and wish for you and for our local governance is that you will humbly accept your duty to recognize your equal standing with all federal and state officers, and not allow any unconstitutional acts or regulations to have any effect within the boundaries of our city. Our founders recognized and appealed to God 4 times in the Declaration of Independence, which they knew would bring war.
Mr. Jones, I'm sorry, sir, but your
Is 3?
your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to address the council? No? All right, very good. We'll move on then to approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 7th, 2021. I'll move to approve those minutes.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, minutes are approved. And we go into unfinished business then. We have 3 items this evening. First up is ordinance number 694, amending the city's dog park rules and regulations. This is the second final reading.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Taylor, Parks and Rec manager is coming up. There was some information posted in the paper that was a little misleading, so he wanted to clarify that for you and the public, and then answer any questions you have before you vote.
Mr. Mayor, Council. Yeah, so today I just had read an article that came across my desk in regards to this ordinance that's in front of us tonight, and a couple things I wanted to clarify on it. The newspaper is correct in that we are removing these 2 rules out from our rules, but they are not out from our expectations. So one of the things that they had mentioned was removing choke, pronged, spiked collars. Those will be removed from the rule, but the expectation is you still can't have those, as that is now just a common thing when you're dealing with animals in dog parks. The second one is it also states that we no longer will enforce or have people fill in their own holes if their animal is to dig a hole within the park. Again, that is still part of our expectation, but we had removed it from the rule set to be a little more user-friendly, less government, what all the things you cannot do when you're in our facility. Those are just standard expectations that we ask everybody when they come to any of our parks. So I just wanted to clarify that with you tonight in case you had questions on it, and again, answer any other questions you may have in regards to this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions regarding the ordinance from council?
In regard to the choke collars and the spike collars, I understand as part of our expectation, if somebody arrives with those, how do we remove them from the park, or how do we deal with that situation? I know it's an expectation, but without a rule, how do we enforce it?
Absolutely, and Vice Mayor, Mr. Mayor. So we have to keep in mind that this is an unmanned facility. So at any point in time, people can be using a lot of our facilities and not following the rules or their expectations. So what we would do is if they show up, if we get a call, if it's brought to our attention, we will go down and we'll enforce that with the individual. And it goes back to our educate, enforce, elevate. So some people may not know it's a rule. Very, very rarely has this ever been an issue. In my time in the city of Cottonwood, I've never once had this come across our desk. So if it does, we would go down, we would educate that individual. Then if we needed to, we'd enforce that rule. And then next we'd elevate up all the way to the point of removal from that facility. But it is important to keep in mind that this is an unmanned facility. We don't have somebody monitoring it all day. So it would be on a call-in basis. If somebody sees it, they'd call the department, we'd go down, we'd address it as it happens.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
So it's still a rule, it's just not a posted rule, right?
Correct. Yes.
All right, any other questions from council?
No, I'm confused because I don't see it in our ordinance. So it would not be a rule. It's an expectation, whether it's posted or not.
It's not something. I apologize, Councilmember Henry, for interrupting. Mayor, Councilmember Henry, yeah, it's not part of the ordinance, so it's not something that we would enforce to kick someone out. We would just educate them on what we think is right or wrong behavior for animals, those kinds of things. Again, one of our goals here is it's about the adults and not encouraging them to supervise each other, complain on each other, tattle on each other, and really create staff-intensive hours. So it's really, the rules we're putting here are the big ones, the ones that we can enforce that are, higher on our priority list. And the rest is really about being good dog owners, being good neighbors down there, and really leaving it for self-policing versus an ordinance where we're going to end up taking someone to court or removing them from ever using our facility again. It's just trying to be friendly and let people, handle their own dogs and animals in their way versus creating conflict.
However, there's still a mechanism if there is a concern about animal cruelty or misuse of a choke collar that if there were a call, we can still prosecute under the amended ordinance, correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, that is correct. We still won't tolerate bad behavior down there. Our animal control officers will be Johnny on the spot and get down there and address it as quickly as we can. Normally, as Mr. Till said, it takes a couple times for us to be able to catch the right person and get the complaint addressed, but usually those are extreme cases.
Sure, go ahead.
So then, I like what you said, that this is not a problem. I think the consensus up here in the past has been not to create an ordinance or a rule or something if there's not a problem. So I agree with that by not going that far. If it's a problem, we can always address the problem later. So, thank you.
All right. Any other comments, council? No? Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion? I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 694.
Second.
All right. Mayor made the motion. Councilmember Wilden seconded. If we could have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Clurot.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hulse.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And motion carried.
All right. Deputy Clerk, please read ordinance number 694 by title only.
Ordinance number 694, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona, amending the dog park rules and regulations. Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, next under unfinished business is ordinance number 706, rezoning approximately 11 square miles of land located in the northeast portion of the city of Cottonwood, generally west of the intersection of State Route 89A and Page Springs Road, from RCU 2A residential single-family rural to NF National Forest and AR 87 agricultural residential 2-acre minimum lot size, and this is the second final reading.
Mr. Mayor, we've had no comments or questions unless council would like. We're good to go on this one. We received no public input.
All right. Council, anything else to discuss on this? Let me just, it is an ordinance I didn't ask on the last one, but is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to comment on this? See a lot of new faces that we don't normally see, so ma'am, you need to come up to the podium. You can fill a form out later.
So I read the signs twice. I go out on those roads all the time. Mr. Mayor, City Council, I've lived here in the Verde Valley for 30 years, and I'm wondering, is it National Forest that's being allocated? That's being rezoned, or does the city of Cottonwood own the land that's being rezoned?
We've annexed the land, ma'am, and so we're applying National Forest zoning over the land that we've annexed.
Okay.
Yep.
And then my question is, how many houses does that mean? I read that it's 2 acres per house. How many houses does?
I believe Mr. Corbin is 100 and some homes out in that area.
They could. That's not the plan. I don't want to be misleading. There's no plan for that. So the law requires us to zone this no denser than the county did in a similar zoning manner Remember, we carried over the county zoning, now we're making it our city zoning. We had to update our zoning first, which is why it took a little while. Oh, there he is, I thought you were in the back. So we had to update our city zoning to create a 2-acre zoning. We've done that, that's in effect. So now we're taking that private land, rezoning it to 2 acres. And of course, the National Forest is still owned and operated and run by the National Forest. There won't be any houses in there. So we're only talking about the private land. Then they will have the same rights now as they did before they were zoned.
Okay, that was my question, whether or not it was national forest or private land.
No, only the private land is open for development. And
Okay, good.
this is, the clock was running on having to approve this particular item, but the owner does plan to bring back a development of some sort, and it'll probably be a planned area development, many more public meetings to discuss that.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah.
Great.
Thank you, ma'am. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could fill out a form for us, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening to address this item? Okay. All right, go ahead, sir.
Okay. I want to clarify, because I think a lot of people out there misunderstand that the national forest is going to stay the national forest. The only thing that's changing is going to be inside the city limits instead of in the county. So there will never, ever be any development on there. So with that said, I move to approve ordinance number 706.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Matthews made the motion, Vice Mayor seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Clurot.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Halls.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And motion carried.
All right, please read ordinance number 706 by title only.
Ordinance number 706, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the zoning map of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona for an area of land on the northeast side of the city known as the Spring Creek Ranch annexation area to change certain district boundaries and classifications thereof from the present Yavapai County zoning designation of RCU 2A residential single-family rural to the city zoning designations of NF National Forest for the national forest lands within the annexation area and AR 87 agricultural residential 2-acre minimum lot size for the private lands within such area. Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Last under unfinished business is ordinance number 707, amending the zoning ordinance by amending section 418, C1 zone, light commercial, again, second and final reading.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Scott Ellis, Community Development Director. Again, there's been no changes, no public comment, no issues on this between the first reading and second reading. I did want to let Council know of a change that I don't think was brought up at the first reading between when it went to the Planning Commission and was brought to you. And that's under number 1, under conditional uses in that C1 area, where it says single-family detached residences. It was presented to the Planning Commission with only that language. When in between the first reading and Planning Commission, we went back and added subject to the property development standards of the R3 zone. That's pretty standard. We needed those development standards in there so we know what to apply to any properties. So I just wanted to let Council know that that was that minor change. The Planning Commission has been made aware of it and they have no issues with it.
Okay. All right, Council, any discussion on this item? And is there anyone here in the public tonight to discuss this item with Council? No? All right. Yes.
I'd move to approve ordinance number 707.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Henry made the motion and Councilmember Naren seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Clurot.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Halls.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And motion carried.
All right, please read ordinance number 707 by title only.
Ordinance number 707, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the zoning ordinance by amending section 418 C1 zone light commercial. Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council, will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests. So we have 2 items tonight. First up is resolution number 3110, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Yavapai County Flood Control District for fiscal year 2021-2022, funding for flood control studies and improvements. And item 2 is a temporary extension of premises liquor license application submitted by Emil Mullen, agent for Cove Mesa Vineyard LLC, located at 741 Air Parkway, units 8 and 9. Is there an item that a public member or council member would like to have pooled? No. All right, I would motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's approved. And let's have Deputy Clerk read resolution number 3110 by title only, please.
Resolution number 3110, or 3110, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Yavapai County Flood Control District for fiscal year 2021-2022 financial contribution to the city for flood control improvements. Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. New business. The following items are for council discussion, consideration, and possible legal action. Up first, request by Verde Valley Habitat for Humanity for waiver of building permit and right-of-way fees for the placement of 6 modular buildings to be used as office space at their current retail outlet. Evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Jim Padgett, Community Development Planner. This fee waiver request, as you said, is from the Habitat for Humanity. They have processed through code review and design review and expansion of their current facility. They're going to be bringing in some modular units and placing them at their location at 737 South Main, their existing facility. They have requested a fee waiver for the building permit fees in the amount of $1,459.44 and a right-of-way permit in the amount of $60. So the fee waiver request is $1,519.44. So that is their request this evening.
All right, thank you. Council, any discussion on this item? I think we've had, this council at least has had a history of trying to support our nonprofits, and this is, I think, a simple way we can do that. We're talking about staff time, which certainly has value to it as we can see, but we feel it's value well placed in the hands of our nonprofit community. So,
Motion?
Please.
I move to approve the request from Habitat for Humanity to waive the building permit fees in the amount of $1,459.44 and the right-of-way permit fee in the amount of $60.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Matthews made the motion. Councilmember Wilden seconded that motion, and let's have our deputy clerk take roll call vote.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Kurat.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hulse.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And motion carried.
Okay, thank you. And up next is a request from the Old Town Association to waive the fees for a conditional use permit for an open-air marketplace located at 1050 North Main Street.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm still Jim Padgett. This request, as you stated, is from the Old Town Association for the open air marketplace. They are currently operating up at 1050 North Main Street on a once a week basis, and they're operating with a temporary use permit. Part of that requirement of the temporary use permit is to come back and get a conditional use permit, which was heard last night at the Planning Commission meeting and approved. For a little expanded hours and a daily event. Their request is for $800 for a waiver for the conditional use permit fees. They are a 501c3 organization, and from what I understand, the project is getting a lot of turnout already, just on a once a week basis.
All right, Council. Go ahead. Yep.
For a motion?
Yes, please.
I move to waive the fees associated with the Cottonwood Old Town Association's application for a conditional use permit to operate an open-air marketplace in Old Town.
I'll second that. So Councilmember Wilden made the motion, Mayor seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Kurat.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hulse.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you. Thanks. Next, item 3, presentation, discussion, and possible conditional approval of a preliminary plat for Phase 3 of the Vineyards at Cottonwood Subdivision.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Scott Ellis, Community Development Director. As mentioned, we have the preliminary plat for the Vineyards at Cottonwoods for Phase 3. Give you a little bit of background on the subdivision process. It starts with a pre-meeting with staff. We review the sketch plan, their thought on the next phase. Goes out for review, 20 working days to various agencies within the city, outside the city, anybody who might be affected by it. Then it will go to the Planning Commission and then to City Council. After that is the final plat, again requires staff review, and then only the City Council. That does not go to Planning and Zoning Commission. And then if council approves it, it would go to the recorder. But again, this is only the preliminary plat. The area that this encompasses is a little bit northeast of 89A, running right here. It's this PAD that was rezoned a few years back. They did phase 1 up here. That yellow line encompasses the project extent. That's Grosseto Ranch Road that eventually will run between 89A and Main Street. That's the overall first phasing plan. Phase 1 again was up here. Phase 2, which was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council earlier this year, is right up in this area here. Again, that's phase 1, phase 2, and then that area that just came up is phase 3, and then so on. So right now, again, they're only on phase 3, which is 29 lots on 6 acres. Between all of the phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, the total number of lots would be 91. Again, they're just starting on phase 2. They're trying to get approval for phase 3 now so that there's no delay. They can move forward. When they get to the 100th home or 100 building permit that gets issued, Grosseto Ranch Road would be required to be fully extended between 89A and Main Street, or by December 31st of 2023, whichever comes first. As I mentioned, if they build out phase 3, that's going to put them at 91 homes. So phase 4 would trigger that if it comes before that December 31st, 2023 deadline. We do have some stipulations. This did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission in August. They recommended approval to City Council with stipulations. I'll go ahead. I know your suggested motion says subject to the stipulations is read on the record, so I'll go ahead and read those now, as you can see them up on the screen. Number 1, the developer will provide the City of Cottonwood with an acceptable assurance that all required improvements will be completed as indicated by the city and outlined within section 302.04, 500.01, and 500.03 of the City of Cottonwood Subdivision Ordinance prior to approval and recording of a final plat. Also required prior to approval of a final plat is right-of-way acquisition and city approval of a road design and engineer's estimate for the extension of Grosseto Ranch Road to Main Street. Financial assurances for the Phase 3 infrastructure shall include assurances for the extension of Grosseto Ranch Road eastward to the Vineyard property boundary. Before I go on to number 2, I do want to make clarification on that first stipulation. It was worded again a little bit different. On the Planning Commission's recommendation to council, it was the full extension of Grosseto Ranch Road. It should only be to their property boundary for Phase 3. Again, that full extension would come at the 100th home or December 31st, 2023.
Mr. Ellis, would you mind just going back to the map so I can see how far they plan to extend that?
Yeah, so where it would extend, it would be the edge right here until that date or 100th building home. So it would go from, it's already extended to right about in here. Mm-hmm. So they'd extend it to this line here and then the rest of the way in the future.
Okay.
Stipulation number 2, the developer shall adhere to all code review board comments dated April 8, 2021, and as may be provided during subsequent reviews. The final plat shall include all information required by Article 4 of the city's subdivision ordinance. Number 4, any comments generated from review of future submittals, including the final plat, shall be adhered to prior to approval and recording of the final plat. Number 5, all road and street heights, widths, cul-de-sac, and hammerhead turnaround distances shall meet the requirements of the 2018 International Fire Code, Appendix D, and any additional city comments. Number 6, corner lots shall be at least 10% wider than typical interior lots per subdivision ordinance section 603.03. And number 7, developers shall adhere to all applicable requirements outlined in its master development plan dated August 2016 and approved under ordinance 622. The development agreement recorded on June 16, 2017, and any subsequent agreements between the developers and the city. Representative from the development is here, as well as their engineer. They can answer any questions council may have for them, or I can answer any questions you may have for staff.
Mr. Matthews, go ahead.
So what was that date again for full completion of Grosseto Ranch Road?
December 31st, 2023.
Along the same lines, Mayor, if I could ask a question. You said, or the 100th house. What phase is the 100th house in phase 4?
Based on these numbers, it would come in phase 4. If phase 3 gets built out, that would put them at 91 homes.
Okay, so this December 31st, 2023, is that completion of the full length of Grosseto Ranch Road or initiation of?
It is full completion of it.
That, or if they build out quicker, you won't issue the 101st permit until this is complete, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then I know that part of their initial project included a lot of, or some amount of townhomes. Can you talk a little bit about what the developer has in mind for bringing any of those to fruition?
So their original master development plan did include various phases with single-family homes and various multifamily homes. Those were coming in later phases. Where they have indicated moving forward right now on these areas here still is only at the single-family home level. Originally, down in this area was going to be that multifamily.
Okay.
And Mr. Horton can stop me if I'm going too far. There has been some land taken back by the original property owner that now is not part of what this developer is doing at this time. Whether they reacquire that land in the future and finish that out, that's left to be seen. But right now, with at least through phase 3, they're still doing the single-family homes.
Okay. And then if you can indicate which would be phase 4 on this
Phase 4, I believe, because these numbers here, and this might be something the developer could better look at. I believe phase 4, let me ask if that's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, if the developer can come out and point out which is phase 4.
To the east, yes.
Over here.
Phase 2.
Phase 2 is here.
Right.
Yeah. So in this area here.
Yeah. More to the west.
You might come up and.
If I may. Phase 4, at this time, we are anticipating is going to be right here.
Okay, I guess I was under the impression that was part of phase 2.
So right now, this is phase 1 completed, or almost completed, and this is phase 2, which is under construction.
Okay.
And this is phase 3, which is the phase that we are discussing today. And from there onwards, we are anticipating phase 4 would be in this area.
Okay. So still on the property that's under ownership by this developer at this time?
Exactly.
Okay. And Mr. Guinegay, can you answer if any of the townhomes will be in that 4th phase?
At this point of time, I don't believe so. I think when the original master plan was developed, it was a concept for a discussion. How much market analysis was done on that, I am not privy to that information, but based on the information that we have, most of the development seems to be on single family. But the opportunity exists if the market condition satisfies that we can accommodate other changes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Willis.
Question for the developer. I suspect. Is there any estimate or guesstimate of when you might reach that 100th home?
Well, like Scott was mentioning, phase 4, we will be reaching that 100 home. As right now, I believe we are at 90. With phase 3, we are getting close to the 90th. I forget the exact number, which I can give you in a little while.
I believe it was 91.
91. So that is phase 3. Up to phase 3, we have 91. So obviously, the next phase, we will be reaching the 100th house.
Right, but you'll have to start finishing Grosseto Ranch Road before that.
Correct. If I may, Grosseto Ranch Road is under design, and actually we have, I want to say we are at like 95% design, and we have had discussion with the city staff, and right now we are going through the final completions. So as far as the major design components are considered, I believe those are all satisfied, and we should be able to share that information pretty soon. So as far as the timelines are concerned on the construction of Grosseto Ranch Road, I don't think the design is going to hold that timeline. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I just had a question then on the traffic. So from the materials in the packet, it looks like phases 3 through 5 aren't going to connect to Grosseto Ranch Road, and it's all going to circulate through the, I guess it's Anna's Avenue. Is that the changed plan?
Yes, Councilmember Henry, Mr. Mayor. So they do have access, Grosseto Ranch Road through here, and then some other accesses that are going to come down and enter into phase 2 and phase 3. In that extent, I do believe there's going to be an emergency access through here for the fire department, the secondary access in there. But it's not going to necessarily be a fully traveled part of Grosseto Ranch Road at this time.
But we don't know when. I do have traffic access concerns with the design that we're looking at right now for future phases. So on the map, I don't see any of the access areas that you're talking about for later construction. Could be because I'm looking at the wrong map.
To enter the rest of the phase through here or off Grosseto Ranch Road?
Off of Grosseto Ranch Road.
Coming in through here. I can let the engineer respond to that on that traffic design. If it's okay, Mr. Mayor, I did want to point out real quick, backing up to that multifamily housing, even though it was part of the master development plan and is still held to that approval, they haven't yet quite got to a point where they're asking to do anything different that would require different approvals to either take that out or modify it. So moving forward, even though they're only doing single family right now, they haven't gotten to where, hey, we're not going to do multifamily, we need to redo this. So that still hasn't happened yet. Krishan, do you want to answer the circulation question?
So I think comment about the traffic is a good observation. Right now, the map which is shown over here is from a previous design. Scott, is that right?
Right.
Since then, we had modified the master plan. However, with the assumption that it can change, but based on the concept that I have up to now, and based on the traffic numbers that is generated in phase 2 and 3, A.R.S, and I believe this is Shangri-La, the two roads can accommodate the traffic. And in the event the fire or the emergency vehicles would like to get additional access, we would be happy to provide some emergency access. But from a traffic circulation standpoint, what we have right now proposed is adequate for the circulation.
Thank you, Krishan. I appreciate that explanation. And this project has seen a series of stops and starts. And my opinion is that the city and city council has been very supportive of this project, and I'd like to personally continue to be supportive of this project. I just know that there were quite a few promises that were made to the community, including the road and some of the price points and a capacity or actual number of units that, I would like the developer to, try to come as close as possible to that. But otherwise, I do want to go ahead and encourage this project wherever possible and appropriate.
All right, thank you. Anything else from council? Scott, Mr. Ellis, wanted to talk to you quickly about what is it then that would trigger them needing to provide some of the multifamily residential that was shown at the beginning? Because it appears to me on the property that they currently still hold that there's not much room left for developing that type of housing option.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council, so part of that take back on that property from the original owner, even though this current developer may not have that as part of what they're doing, it is still held to the master development plan as a whole. So even if somebody else were to come in, they would be subject to those requirements. Whether they come forward to Planning Commission and City Council to request a change, a modification, amendment, that's yet to be seen. We've had very preliminary interest in it from other people that have indicated doing the multifamily. So right now, the way it sits, anybody who comes in and reacquires that land is still subject to the master development plan as it was approved, whether it's this developer or somebody in the future.
Okay, that makes sense to me, thank you. The reason I bring it up is I think we all recognize from the housing study that it's housing that we could use. And frankly, I liked it. It looked, from the preliminary designs, it was attractive. I think it was more family focused, family friendly, and I'd still like to see it come to fruition. So, thank you.
So, Mr. KJ Kassoon is here to speak on behalf of the development.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. To address Council Member Henry's concern initially, the city has been a good partner in this project, and we appreciate each and every one of the members and city manager and obviously Mr. Horton as well. As we proceed, this project's been a long time coming and a slow time coming because of the absorption and momentum. So it seems like every time we got our wheels off the ground and got rolling, there was a problem or interest rates or COVID or this and that and other. I would like to point out that Scott, do you have your minutes? I don't want to. Okay, great. Right up here, we're still very much considering high-end apartments and condos up in this area. To the, let's call it northwest, we've got a major floodplain here and some unusable land that would lend itself to trails and recreational area. We've got the same thing, a FEMA floodplain here. This would lend itself to some higher density stuff, so it's obviously on our radar and something we consider on a quarterly basis. That being said, we're looking forward to building this $2 million road for the city tying 89 to Main Street. And the absorption has slowed us down a little bit, but I think we've got a good target date of December 2023. And with their approval of phase 3, our goal is to build half of that road for the city and then complete it with phase 4 or 5.
Excellent. Well, that'll probably be one of the biggest ribbon cuttings in recent history here in Cottonwood. Right. Certainly a lot of anticipation around that road. So,
right.
Thank you for clarifying. Appreciate it. All right, Council, anything else? No? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the preliminary subdivision plat for the Vineyards at Cottonwood Phase 3, subject to the stipulations and conditions read into the record by staff.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Wilden made the motion, Vice Mayor seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Kurat.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Halls.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, next we have an interview of applicants for 2 open seats on the Airport Commission.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kirsten Lennon, Financial Services Director and Acting HR Director. Tonight we have 5 applicants for you to interview for 2 vacant positions on the Airport Commission. We received applications from Ronald Baird, William Horn, Lynn Howard, Vernon Reed, and William Wagnon, and they're all here to be interviewed. This is to fill 2 vacant seats, and the requirements for the Airport Commission is that 4 members must be residents of the incorporated city of Cottonwood, and 1 of the 5 members does not need to be a tenant or a leasee at the Cottonwood Municipal Airport or have any working knowledge of aviation. Of our 3 current members, all are tenants or leasees of the Cottonwood Airport and have aviation experience, and 2 of the 3 reside in the city limits. So at this time, you have the scoring criteria, and they are all here for you to call up and interview.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ms. Lennon. So we're going to call, yes?
Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, I think there's 1 council member not scoring. She participated in the blind.
Correct.
All right, so thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, there's a blind scoring process that took place already. So this part of the process is where you're interviewed by the City Council. There will be no decision made tonight. We'll bring it back for a future meeting for final approval by Council. But just want to say I appreciate each and every one of you for stepping up and applying for this important commission. And we're going to we're going to bring you up in alphabetical order by your last name, which puts Mr. Baird at a great advantage over the others. Disadvantage. Mr. Wagner, you're going to be at a great advantage, as the questions are all the same.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, it's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Baird. So 3 simple questions. First up is please tell us how you would assist the commission in furthering the city's strategic plan to have the airport be an economic driver for the city.
The airport can be an economic driver by bringing in commuter flight to other places such as Phoenix. I see that we have one very small flight school there, a huge flight school over in Prescott, obviously, that uses the airport tremendously. I think that more economic development in terms of aviation or other kinds of industrial use of land that would not interfere with traffic patterns would be very helpful on the airport itself.
All right, very good. What expertise would you bring to the commission to assist the commission in providing advice and recommendations on airport-related matters to this council?
I'm a retired lieutenant colonel in the Civil Air Patrol, flying search and rescue. I was on the advisory panel for the Kona International Airport in Kona, Hawaii, when we wanted to expand that airport and make it more community-friendly, more user-friendly, if you will. At that time, it was the last airport in the United States that when you landed there or you took off, you climbed downstairs or upstairs to the airplane. There were no jet ports. The local community has a very deep cultural feeling for the land. All the residents in the area wanted to maintain the ambiance of the airport being open air, where there were sometimes hula dancers or guitar players, whatever. We worked out a plan that, yes, all that kind of paraphernalia, if you want to call it that way, or ambiance, was maintained with jet ports being built further back where you wouldn't see them from that area until you actually went to board your flight. Another major problem we had there, the airport is now called the Ellison Onizuka International Airport in memory of an astronaut from Kona, Hawaii, who died in the Challenger crash. The family has deep roots in the area. We had to work with the family very extensively about what to do about relocating the Memorial Museum for Ellison Onizuka because it would be in the way of the development of the entire airport to another location that would be very satisfactory. That was all worked out very well. My other expertise, I think, is that having been in corporations more than 50 years of my life, I have a lot of financial experience in making things happen.
All right. Very good. Last question, sir. Based on your understanding of the current airport commission, what does the commission do well and what can be improved on?
I think one of the things that needs to be improved at the airport, especially after the 250-year storm we just went through, is the drainage of the airport. There's very substantial drainage that went off the airport onto an industrial area, caused a great deal of concern down in that place. Certainly a new kind of a terminal, if you will, would maybe help bring in some commuter flights or even recreational flights for that matter. We have a helicopter company operating out of Sedona, giving tours. There's no reason that kind of an operation could not be headquartered here in Sedona, or pardon me, here in Cottonwood either.
Okay. All right. Mr. Baird, thank you very much.
You bet.
Appreciate your time. All right, next we have Mr. William Horn. Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having me.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. And same three questions. First up is please tell us how you would assist the commission in furthering the city's strategic plan to have the airport be an economic driver for the city.
Well, I have dealt with many fixed-based operators, many airports, community airports, trying to increase the traffic operations in there, the takeoffs and the landings, trying to attract people in to base their aircraft here in Cottonwood. I think there's a lot of advantages here. I don't know, frankly, all the conditions or the problems because I've only been in Cottonwood now for about 3 months, moving down from Salem, Oregon. So, but I spent about 40 years in the valley, so I do know Glendale, Scottsdale, Mesa, Chandler, those airports, and have dealt extensively with them.
Okay, great. Second question, sir. What expertise would you bring to the commission to assist the commission in providing advice and recommendations on airport-related matters to this council?
My expertise has been more in the financing of general aviation rather than the management, although I was part of what was called the East Valley Partnership, and we were kind of the driving force behind privatizing the old Williams Gateway Airport down in Mesa. And so we were able to attract a lot of freight in that came out of Sky Harbor, and we got some companies to base there in Mesa, and there was at least one. Allegiant is now based out of Mesa. So, you know, a lot of that came out of the impetus from the East Valley Partnership.
Okay, great. And last question, sir, is based on your understanding of the current airport commission, what does the commission do well and what can be improved upon?
Honestly, again, having just been here 3 months, it would be really unfair for me to say, other than, you know, I've been here 3 months. I've been out to the airport a number of times because that was my business. That was my passion. I have been taken by it seems a lack of activity at the airport. Once in a while you see somebody go up for what we used to call hoots and giggles, but not a lot of takeoffs or landings out of the airport. And it'd be nice to see some activity generated, things to be done there.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Mr. Horn. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Ms. Len Howard, you're up next. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Alinsky and members of the council. Thank you for serving and appreciate all that you do for the safety and positive progress of our city. My name is Len Howard. I've lived in Cottonwood for about 3.5 years and in Arizona for 50 years.
Great. No surprise, same 3 questions.
Okay.
Number 1.
First one, yes.
Please tell us how you would assist the commission in furthering the city's strategic plan to have the airport be an economic driver for the city.
Well, there are several things that need to be examined, and one is the primary people who use the airport. There are some ways, and I've been thinking about this and listing them, that the users of the airport could contribute a little bit more to the progress and to the expansion.
Okay. All right. Second question, ma'am, is what expertise would you bring to the commission to assist the commission in providing advice and recommendations on airport-related matters to this council?
Well, I have firsthand experience with concerns of the community about current Cottonwood Cottonwood airport safety issues and future ramifications of decisions made by the Airport Commission Board that affect those public safety issues. The majority of the current board members are pilots, and a citizen representative was invited to provide objective and long-term solution perspective for continued safety and growth at the airport. A few years ago, I passed the written test to become a pilot, so I do know that information. And but I decided not to fly the Globe CG-1 Swift, which I'm sure the pilots here would recognize. We owned it. My ex-husband is a helicopter pilot. My current husband retired from FAA. And more importantly, as a concerned Cottonwood citizen, I would be providing valuable community information that addresses the current status and future determined by this board to assure the public safety of the community area and its citizens. That's paramount.
Okay, great. And last question, Ms. Howard, is based on your understanding of the current airport commission, what does the commission do well and what can be improved upon?
Well, I think the current board is open to information because this area is growing fast and at warp speed, and so there needs to be a variety of perspectives, and they're open to it, obviously by entertaining a community representative. Other than that, any other questions?
No, ma'am, that's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Okay. All right, Mr. Vernon Reed, you're up next. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Alinsky and City Council. First, I'll announce that I'm an incumbent Airport Commission member, and obviously up for re-election. Now I've got 3 competitors on my tail, so I guess we'll take your questions and go from there.
All right. I do wish we had this robust turnout for the other commissions, but I'll give a plug for that at the end, so we'll just get right down to it here. Question 1 is, please tell us how you would assist the commission in furthering the city's strategic plan to have the airport be an economic driver for the city.
I'll go back first about 6 years when I first entered the Airport Commission. One of the things I had in my mind was to build an economic base that made the airport much more self-sustaining. We've done a lot of work over the last 6 years, but one of the key things to me, and I've watched this firsthand, getting the airport to be self-sustaining means there has to be an economic base to be able to do that. Certainly the city ends up having to contribute a lot. The airport is, at best, give or take, solvent in and of itself by the financial plans and stuff like that that we run off of. But when you have 2 or 3 or 4 different major firms come look at Cottonwood to think about building a facility that would definitely improve the economic base. One of those, for example, is the Valkyrie Aircraft Company literally came to Cottonwood looking for a place to build their airplanes. There's no broadband. That has been my vendetta now for the last couple years, is unless we get broadband in and around the airport, major firms are not going to want to come. These are the little things that you know, the unsung things that the commission has to deal with, and we incentivize the city to participate with us. And we've come a long ways, don't get me wrong, in getting the sort of infrastructure bases we need to just spawn that growth. We're not there yet. And certainly the last year to year and a half with the COVID scenarios and everything else, it's made some devastation to a lot of things, including the FBO that we had. So needless to say, you know, we're kind of, you know, slowly creeping out of the COVID routine. We need to get back to thinking long-term about how we can build on the airport.
Okay. All right, thank you. Second question is, what expertise would you bring to the commission to assist the commission in providing advice and recommendations on airport-related matters to this council?
Well, you know, obviously the experience, being, you know, a commission member now for the last 6 years, certainly helps, because you know the politics, you've seen the changes that have been happening around the airport. Sadly, you know, much of the ramp is empty these days. Don't like to see that. It's not, you know, it's not helping the economics of the airport when it's that way. So I'll just say the experience, the knowledge, and the, call it the recognition of the pilots' rights, responsibilities, the city's rights and responsibilities, and how they have to be blended together are really the tough nut to crack.
Okay. All right, last question is, based on your understanding of the current airport commission, what does the commission do well and what can be improved upon?
I'll point at myself, you know. I'm as good a person that you can point at as anybody, because I am on the commission, have been on the commission. The other members of the commission have come and gone. You know, we see people, you know, have to leave for various reasons. One of our commissioners recently had to leave simply because he works out of town. But I'll say we're weak. We're still weak. We need to be much more proactive in pointing out the specific things that we think need to be done. And I think those specific things need to be outlined and prioritized in that master plan. And the master plan is moving along. It's you know, it's not finished yet, but the bottom line is, over the next few years, I think the master plan and the commission need to deep dive much more than they have before in prioritizing the things that need to get done at the airport.
Okay. All right. That's it, Mr. Reed. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Right.
All right, Mr. William Wagnon. Is it Wagnon?
Wagnon.
Wagnon, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Say again?
Thank you for being here. Appreciate your application. And same 3 questions. First up is, please tell us how you would assist the commission in furthering the city's strategic plan to have the airport be an economic driver for the city.
That's going to be difficult. I see the idea of the airport being an economic driver for Cottonwood is going to be very hard. And there's not going to be commercial passenger service out of Cottonwood Airport. The airport itself doesn't charge very much money for planes coming in and landing. They give free tie downs to visiting aircraft. Any aircraft that come in here, right now, they're not coming here to spend time in Cottonwood. They're coming here to spend time in Sedona. So the money they leave, they're going to be leaving in Sedona. They're not going to be leaving it here in Cottonwood. So the airport, I think I'm correct that the airport is going to be losing $200,000 this next fiscal year. The airport is going to have to rethink how they manage their income because they have a very small income stream available to them. And Cottonwood is going to have to create a destination that people want to come and stay in Cottonwood and leave their money here. Otherwise, we're just a parking lot for Sedona.
All right. Second question, sir, is what expertise would you bring to the commission to assist the commission in providing advice and recommendations on airport-related matters to this council?
I didn't quite hear. I'm sorry, but
that's okay.
My eardrums got blown out in combat, so
that's all right.
Hearing is a little tough for me sometimes.
No worries. I'll repeat it. What expertise would you bring to the commission to assist the commission in providing advice and recommendations on airport-related matters to this council?
Well, I was in federal civil service for 20 years as an aerospace quality assurance specialist. Dealt with Minuteman III missile tests and Peacekeeper missile development and test. So my ability to look at information and see what is really there and to grasp that and put it into plain language and see that other people have the same understanding. It comes from that experience. Okay. I oversaw contractors, federal contractors. I was looking over the shoulder of the contractor's quality assurance specialist, who was looking over the shoulder of the contractor's engineer, who was looking over the shoulder of the contractor's technician. And then when I said, yeah, you did it right, you followed the instructions, then we went to the next step.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And last question, sir, based on your understanding of the current airport commission, what does the commission do well and what can be improved upon?
Well, I've only started paying attention to the commission in the past 6 months or so. I don't know what they do well. I know where I think they are failing badly, and that is communication to the community. You have 3 groups of people who live here. I will group them in 3s. You have residents that live in Cottonwood who don't care about the airport, may not even know it exists, and have nothing to do with it. And they really don't care what happens to the airport because it doesn't affect their life. You have another group of people who are affected by airport operations. And you heard some of them speak at that huge meeting and some of them spoke with great passion about how it affected their life. Airport Commission hasn't been talking to those people, hasn't communicated well with them. I asked the Airport Commission a few questions, and the answers I got were less than accurate. I actually had to dig up the information in the FAA handbook and the Arizona State revised statutes to actually understand what they were trying to say. So communications is terrible. The other group of people are the users of the airport. And my experience with them has been that they are feeling threatened that this group that wants to, or who is troubled by the airport, wants to take away their ability to function in the airport. And there's got to be a meeting of minds, and there's got to be a give and a take on both parts. And there are tools in your toolbox that you have. Anything from a little tiny screwdriver to adjust this or adjust that to a sledgehammer. All right, and it would be best not to get to the sledgehammer stage. It would be best to try the smaller tools first, see how they work, and see if that can't be accomplished where the people that use the airport aren't wholly inconvenienced and give up everything, and the people who experience the airport operations can relax a little bit and say, okay, I'm not being entirely abused. The city is making an effort. So I think I can speak to both of those groups. I would try. There is no guarantee.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate your application.
Okay, thank you.
And for being here this evening, to all of you, thank you very much. It's not often we have so few seats available and so many folks applying. So clearly not each and every one of you will make the cut, but there's always opportunities in the future. And we have many other commissions too. So if you love Cottonwood like we do, I'd encourage you to get involved in other ways if you don't make the cut for this particular commission. We have current vacancy on our Planning and Zoning Commission and frequent openings on some of the other commissions that we have. So again, thanks very much for being here, for filling out the application, taking time out of your evening to be interviewed by this board, and we'll let you know in a future meeting who is appointed. Thank you. Okay, next then is the request and recommendation for waiver of the city's procurement policy to contract with Alliance Service and Control Specialists, Inc. on a sole source basis for the installation of specialized hardware and software programming at the Mingus Wastewater Treatment Plant and associated injection well to allow for groundwater injection, underground, incidentally.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Tom Whitmer, and tonight I'm the Utilities Director for this meeting. Next one, I'll be the Natural Resources Director. I come to you tonight to request your approval to waive the procurement policy that would allow us to direct select Alliance systems for the installation and programming of the supervisor control and data acquisition system for the proposed injection recharge project at Mingus Wastewater Treatment Plant. As most of you are aware, for some time now, we've been attempting to complete and begin recharging reclaimed water via injection at the Mingus Wastewater Treatment Plant. We've already completed the well. We've tested the well. We've obtained all the necessary permits from ADQ and from the Department of Water Resources. And recently, you approved the engineering for the infrastructure and design for the wellhead and the transportation modes to get the reclaimed water to the injection well so we can begin injecting reclaimed water. Excuse me, sorry. When we started looking into this, the only thing that's really left other than the actual construction of, okay, thank you. Other than the construction of the actual infrastructure itself would be to install the SCADA system, or the Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System, which will allow it to be integrated with the operating system at the Mingus Wastewater Treatment Plant so we can automate recharge and refreshing of the injection well as easily as possible. When we started looking into that, however, we looked at the operating system that is driving the SCADA system at Mingus and came to the realization that it's been operating off a system that is no longer supported. It was operating off the Windows XP system. As most of you know, Microsoft doesn't even support Windows XP. So we thought, well, we can easily just upgrade the operating software. Well, when we looked into that, we found out that the programmable logic controllers, or PLCs, that operate the individual equipment can only operate on Windows XP. So we have to change those out as well. So we're coming to you tonight to seek the waiver of the procurement so we can go directly to Alliance, simply because Alliance has been doing all of the programming, which is a proprietary system for themselves. They use a proprietary programming operating system that integrates with the Windows XP, which will integrate into something newer when we do this. And they've been doing it for 15 years. If we were to change that out and go to another integrator, we'd have to change the entire SCADA system out for the entire city of Cottonwood, which operates not only wastewater, but water as well. And that's the reason we're looking for approval to go directly to Alliance and continue with that system, which is the least cost option. And they actually do very good work for us. It's unfortunate that we got into the SCADA system here some 8-9 years ago or 10 years ago, at least on the wastewater side or on the water side. We didn't have a grand vision for the SCADA system itself, so it's been kind of piecemealed all along. And we're now looking at trying to upgrade that so it'll be fully integrated, both water and wastewater operating off the same system. So with that, I'll open for any questions you might have.
All right, questions for Mr. Whitmer? Yes, go ahead, sir.
So I understand in the short term, it would just be completely unfeasible as far as the cost goes to change the system. Does that include even looking out longer term, that there's just no other software or system that would be practical?
There are several integrators around that do this type of work, but they all seem to have proprietary programming that they utilize. I'm not sure how cost effective it would be at this point in time. We've actually had some discussions with a couple of other integrators when we were looking at the entire water and wastewater system as a whole to see how we can integrate it so it's brought up to the 21st century. And in discussing with them, their rates are pretty much on par with Alliance's. They didn't seem to really be offering us anything more than what Alliance was already offering for the same dollar.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Wilden?
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is that we're tied to Alliance for how long? And will this happen again? Probably.
I hope not. If we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, it should never happen again. We should be staying ahead of the curve instead of playing catch up, which we seem to be doing a lot. We seem to be more reactive than proactive, and that's one of the things that we're attempting to eliminate or minimize, at least at a.
And I'm assuming that's going to come forward in a budget.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Plan. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions on this item? No. I do want to say this was originally slated for the consent agenda, but it seemed a pretty big ticket item. We wanted to have a little bit more discussion on this. Yeah. Appreciate you being here.
And I appreciate that. I think anytime we are waiving our competitive procurement process, it's good to have that extra record of the discussion and the rationale for the cost, the extra staff time, and the lack of viable alternatives. So are you ready for a motion?
Please. Yep.
Otherwise, I'll move to waive the city's procurement policy and approve the proposed contract with Alliance Service and Control Specialist to provide and install programmable logic controllers and perform specialized software programming at the Mingus Wastewater Treatment Plant and the associated injection well at the estimated cost of $143,515.
I'll second that. So Councilmember Henry made the motion, Mayor seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Kurat?
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews?
Yes.
Councilmember Naren?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Halls?
Yes.
Mayor Linsky?
Yes.
And motion carried.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you.
Next and last under new business is presentation, discussion, and direction of staff regarding proposed housing assistance programs for city and other local employees to be administered by Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm Ryan Bigelow, the Library Director, and tonight I'll be acting as your housing facilitator. If you remember, June 8th, we were here and we reviewed the Verde Valley Regional Housing Assessment. Along with that, we introduced you to Devonna McLaughlin from Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona, and she brought with her a couple of preliminary concepts. So tonight we want to bring those concepts back to you with two more specific programs. They're more refined than the last time you saw them, but we're still going to need a lot of your input and direction moving forward here. So before I bring Devonna up, just to note, Devon is also still working with Sedona on 2 very similar programs, and they're moving ahead with those. And also wanted to remind you that we're very excited to bring on our new housing manager, Shannon Boone, who starts September 28th, and we're sharing that with Sedona as well. So with that, we'll bring on Ms. Devonna.
Ryan, Mr. Bigelow, can I ask, so the plan is some decision points tonight, and then we plan to bring it back October 5th for a 19th for a final vote.
So we'll work with, staff will work with Devonna after we get to decision points tonight. We won't be voting on anything tonight. We'll go back, work on the drawing board with Devonna, and then come back on the 19th with some actual agenda items to approve.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come back and chat with y'all. I'm going to try not to drink someone else's water. My name is Devonna, and I have the honor of working for Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona. And I've had the honor of talking to you guys before about down payment and closing cost assistance programs to benefit workforce. In Cottonwood, we administer similar programs in Flagstaff and have since 1999, as a reminder. And we're also a HUD-approved housing counseling agency. So we bring that expertise to the table and are happy to talk to you tonight. We've worked extensively with your staff. They've been wonderful, very thoughtful, providing lots of feedback and direction for us as we've worked to create lender guidelines for 2 proposed programs for your consideration. There's a couple of decision points, maybe 4 or 5, that we're seeking council feedback on so we can finalize lender guidelines for final consideration for y'all to see if you want to move forward or not. So we're excited to kind of get your feedback and get some questions answered. So I think, oh, I have the magic. I didn't even screw it up. Okay. So in talking to city staff, we work to design 2 programs that would benefit Cottonwood's workforce. The first program would be an employer-assisted housing program specifically for employees who are employed by the city of Cottonwood. In order to be eligible, they would have to work for the city for at least a year. They'd have to be not on a performance review plan or however you guys determine that with HR. So we'd verify that status with their HR department to make sure that they're an employee in good standing and that they're full-time working at least 30 hours a week. The other program would be for employees who work within the city of Cottonwood city limits. And the programs are very similar, except that the proposal is that for City of Cottonwood employees, there is no income limit. It's an employee benefit. It's a retention and recruitment tool for the city to try and make sure that your workforce that you employ is living in the Verde Valley and then hopefully retains the workforce here for Cottonwood. When we're talking about a broader program for employees who work in the city limits, there is proposed to be an income guideline so that you're not helping someone who works here who makes $1 million buy a first home, because it just doesn't feel like those folks would need the assistance. So the first question that we would ask of y'all is, what should those income guidelines be for the broader community program? We've given you some guidelines here. It's a little difficult to read, and I apologize for that. But essentially, we'd be looking at tying it to what percentage of area median income, and then those are adjusted based on household size. And this is a standard that's used in the housing world, so lenders are familiar with it. It's set by HUD annually. I would like to say that happens on a specific date each year, but it doesn't. So sometime in the spring is when these numbers adjust. And so our current 2021 area median income guidelines for Yavapai County are here for you. So you can see if you wanted to set the guidelines at 100% AMI for a household of 2, the income could not exceed $51,100 for the household annually. If you wanted to look at 125%, it's $63,875 annually, and then 150% would be $76,650. So in order to help inform that conversation, we've given you a few purchase scenarios as well, and that, my eyes are horrible. So next time things will be bigger and bolder. However, If you're a household making about $50,000 a year, if you're looking at a 35% housing ratio, so about 35% of your gross monthly income goes to housing costs, you can afford about $1,458 a month. And the maximum affordable purchase price, so that you wouldn't pay much higher than that, would be about $263,000 is what you can buy. There's some assumptions in there because we have to make assumptions as far as the interest rate for your mortgage, how much down payment you have, what the principal and interest payment would be based on those assumptions, and then mortgage insurance, because you're probably not putting 20% down. If you did, that'd be amazing. But mortgage insurance costs right now for someone with good credit is about 0.29% interest rate, and then divided by 12. And then we estimate what taxes and insurance would be as well. So you're looking at about a purchase price of $263,000, and that person, that household, would need about $20,000 if we're calculating a 3.5% down payment and then 3% closing costs in order to get the loan. So that kind of helps you know what the buying power is there. We also did it for a household of $75,200. I don't know why we're off by 200, but that was the number I had used before. This household, similar assumptions, could afford about $425,000 in a purchase price. And you can see the percentages go up for what they need for down payment and closing costs. So they're looking at needing about $33,000 in order to make that affordable for them and to have the down payment. And then we did $100,000 as well. This household could afford about $577,000 in a purchase price. So these are not bad purchase prices, honestly. One of the benefits right now, to be frank with you all, is that interest rates remain low, so that increases buying power. That's the piece of the puzzle that we don't get to control. So I can tell you what buying power looks like now. I don't know what it'll be in 6 months or a year, because that'll fluctuate. If interest rates go up, buying power goes down. We also looked at what employees in Cottonwood make to try and give you some sense of who you might be helping based on what income levels you set. So, for example, Cottonwood Oak Creek School District full-time custodians, about $26,520 a year. We looked at building officials for the city of Cottonwood. You can see it's $67,000 to $83,000. City of Cottonwood firefighter, $45,000 to $68,000. Verde Valley Medical, so a new grad nurse would make about $68,640 or $33 an hour. Certainly that nurse could have some overtime, so that could fluctuate. And I also want to point out that your household isn't always a single income household. So if you had a nurse who was borrowing with, or had a household member who was also a custodian, for example, then the buying power of the household could be increased because the household income would be greater. But this just gives you a sense of kind of what some of those starting salaries are in the community. So that's question one for the community program, and I'm happy to stop here and get feedback, or I'm happy to continue to get all the questions on the table and then discuss. So I'm not sure which y'all would like to do. Is that what you want to?
Yeah.
Another?
Can we go back to the chart that has the? Yeah,
this one? Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say let's pause here and have some discussion on this item before we move on. And I'm just curious what, you've looked at other or implemented or advised other programs up in Flag and perhaps elsewhere. Is there some place you can point us to? I mean, what's common?
Yeah, so I will say income levels based on Coconino County are a little higher than Yavapai County, so we even see them to be a little higher than this metric here. In Flagstaff, they use 125% of the area median income as the maximum purchase income eligibility for their community program. City of Sedona is looking at 150% AMI. So it varies based on the intent and kind of some of those salaries of the workforce. I think especially because folks really want to make sure that those essential workers, the folks who are working, in the hospital, your firefighters, police, teachers, can meet under these criteria in order to be able to be eligible. But if you're asking my opinion, I would fall either 125% or 150, depending on how big a pool you want to help.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When they figure out the AMI, does that take into account all the people that live here that are retired, or? that is separate? Because I would assume that would
Yeah.
drop that.
I honestly don't know a good answer for that because it's way above my pay grade. HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, sets it for the metropolitan statistical areas, and in our state, it's typically county-wide. So I'm not sure how retirement income plays into that, quite honestly, for this metric.
Okay. Council, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I can add, just so we don't get confused, this plan would be for employees, so the retirees wouldn't be eligible. They have to be employed somewhere.
Yeah, but as far as how the numbers are set, I don't know how that impacts, yeah, but yes.
I guess I do have one. So, for the practicality of this, and I love the fact that we're looking into this, and we've talked about what can we do, and this is one small thing that we can probably do. And for recruitment and retention, it's great. My concern is when I look here, I mean, anybody making $75,000 to $100,000, not so sure they need our help with, what are we looking at, $10,000 down payment assistance?
I think the proposal's 20,000,
Okay.
but that's a decision point you get to make on a future slide, so you're jumping.
Yeah, and who I would really want to see helped are those that are at the bottom income level. But what's really discouraging here, because I know the market quite well, is somebody making $50,000 a year, we can give them $20,000 in down payment assistance, and they're not going to find a house that doesn't sit on piers and came on a truck for $263,000.
Right.
Doesn't even exist anymore.
And so that is also an important factor because you don't want to design a program that no one can use. So if you set it at 100% AMI, for example, and the buying power of those buyers is below what you can find on the market, then it limits the amount of efficacy of the program. And so we see that a little bit in Flagstaff. I'm not going to argue that one because we're at, like, I think a median sales price of $450,000, or it just hit $500,000. Super exciting. And so we have that disconnect as well.
So what is their solution to making this program work up there for the lower income?
I'll be honest, it's not for low income. It's for your median and moderate income folks, which is up to 120% AMI based on HUD's definition. And so we're not seeing folks who are at $15 an hour, which is our minimum wage, really opening the door to home ownership. That's $34,000, I think. And so it really is for folks who are a little bit higher on the income scale. We do see, though, like when you see a $500,000 average purchase price, which is insane, I have to say we have folks who are finding below average purchases. So it doesn't mean there's nothing in that lower range. It means that they might buy a condo, they might buy a manufactured home, they might buy a townhome, likely not buying a single family home.
So are you seeing people at those higher income levels then, or median income levels, struggling to buy a home because they can't come up with the down payment?
Mm-hmm. So rents in Flagstaff are about $2,000 to $3,000 a month. So you find that even when people make decent income, when you're paying that much in rent, you can't save $30,000 for that down payment and closing costs. And so that becomes the barrier then, not what they can qualify for on a mortgage, but how do they get the required down payment and closing costs in order to open the door to homeownership.
So I'm assuming that Sedona's rationale for 150% AMI is to open up the opportunity to purchase something in Sedona because they're meeting home prices similar to.
And they're not limiting to Sedona, they're Verde Valley. So they could have someone who gets assistance, who works in Sedona, who buys in Camp Verde, Rimrock, Cottonwood, unincorporated areas. So it's not just limited to Sedona because their point was that nobody would be able to buy anything.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, we can move on with the presentation, but we need to give her some kind of direction, give staff some kind of direction on this particular point right here. So.
I'm leaning toward 125 only because it sounds like that the 100% isn't enough.
I kind of just provided that for reference, but if you want to go that route, we can certainly see how many folks are under 100% and still have the buying power and see kind of how it works and bring it back to y'all to increase the income guidelines. I will say it's harder to decrease income guidelines than increase income guidelines, but I think you're probably going to have a lower utilization rate if you set it at 100%.
I'm also leaning towards the 125% for those reasons. And to be able to capture more of the median income workers, I think 125% would be more realistic anyway than the 100%.
Any other council members want to weigh in on that before we move on?
I would agree. I think 125 is a good starting point. I think we may, in the future, have to look at increasing that depending on what happens with interest rates and all of the other attendant things, but at least 125 would give somebody an opportunity to buy housing today.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing we would do is track who's coming to us, right? So as we work with local employers to advertise these programs to their employees, because that's who's eligible, and they came to us, we do an income calculation, and if we keep seeing folks at 130% area median income and they're just over being eligible, we would bring that feedback back to staff to try and adjust the program, do some tweaks. I will say we've been doing this for 20 years, and the program we do now is not the program we did 20 years ago. So based on market changes, based on interest rate, based on incomes, it's likely you would see maybe some tweaks and adjustments in a year or whatever it might be anyway. Or we can come back and say all the money's spent, it's been wonderfully received, how amazing is this? And that would be fine with me too.
Are we able, in a non-discriminatory manner, to give weight to those at the lower end of the AMI, so weight first to the 100%, but yet have the ability to still award to those in the 125% AMI? I get that this is more for the medium earners, but I'd like, wherever possible, to give some help where help is needed, even if there is a concern about what can they actually buy. We are working to try to address that concern as well.
So I think it would be hard on a program that you're trying to do. So we do it first come, first serve it in Flagstaff, and that's the proposal here, because I wouldn't want to sit on money and then not be able to spend it, holding it for someone who may theoretically come along later. What I could, or what I would suggest, is perhaps you tier it. So folks at a lower income level might be eligible for more assistance than folks at a higher income level, for example. And we've done that in Flagstaff in the past, where there was, I want to say under 100% AMI was a larger amount, and then under 125% was a smaller amount. Still helpful and significant, but that's how they were able to make sure that folks in a lower income range were able to get more assistance because they needed it, essentially. So that's an idea.
I personally really like that idea.
Okay. And we can chat with staff and discuss kind of what the tiers are and what the levels are. You'll see down the road here how much assistance is a question. So perhaps that could be a question for both tiers, for example.
Okay.
Question for staff then. You're using this 400,000 CARES money as seed money, so is this something that we're looking to maybe implement past this $400,000 and continue to fund somehow in the budget moving forward?
So my vision is if we budget $400,000 for the remainder of this year is what we have set aside, or we'll ask council in October. Remember, we set aside that CARES replacement funds in grants, so it's sitting there right now. So my suggestion is to use $400,000 of that. It'll be approved in the contract and the allotment in October. And then we just kind of see how we can fund that amount for 2 years. And then from there, we can evaluate how the program is going, and then it would be an annual budget allotment based on current patterns of revenue. I think we could start adding money to that out of our general fund revenues on an annual basis. The way it's been explained to me, there are good years in Flagstaff and there are leaner years in Flagstaff. And so it's just as the part of the budget process moving forward, we'll add or not add each year, depending on use, depending on success, and depending on how general fund revenues are going and how it matches the priorities of council.
I think that's good. It's just kind of a learning curve. Try something and see how it works out. And
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Matthews, as it pleases council, I mean, you could a lot more than that in October or less than that, depending on what you want to see happen. You know, I think we have the housing manager coming on, and we have some other great opportunities coming up. So, you know, I'd hate to spend it all on one program when I think that we're going to have other programs to look at coming up.
The other thing that has been done in other municipalities is that when funds are repaid through this program, because it's a loan and it is repaid, assuming it's not a default, which doesn't happen that often, I will say, then that could go back into a fund balance and be reallocated out and then maybe supplemented with a general fund allocation.
okay, I thought about that earlier and I forgot to ask.
Yeah.
That's great.
And honestly, some years are good for payoffs and some years are not good for payoffs. So it depends on if you have an increasing rate market or a decreasing rate market. So it's another fluctuation, but it's another thing to put into the equation annually to look at.
Okay. All right, well, I too am leaning toward the 125% AMI, and I do like the tiered approach too for those on the lower spectrum and upper. So,
Perfect.
all right,
Is like consensus on that?
I believe so.
All right. So then the next questions. All right, so those are hard to read and I can't read it, but I can read my paper. So I'm gonna read to you some of those additional questions that we have. And these would apply to both programs, right? So we'll try and make them as consistent as possible so we don't have to explain two different programs all the time. We'll just explain the income guidelines for the community program.
Can I interrupt for a second? I think we've made an assumption that I'm uncomfortable with as we move forward, and that is council okay with two programs? You know, staff has moved forward with that based on the discussion for the last meeting. There's very little difference, but there is a difference, and I just, you know, we never asked. And so I want to make sure that before we go much further through this program, and you can wait till the end if you prefer, but I thought we've made an assumption here that you guys haven't spoken on. So I want to make sure that you're okay with an employee program for city employees as a recruitment retention tool, and then for people employed within the city limits.
And can you clarify, the AMI that we just discussed is not applicable to the employee program?
That is correct, the way that
That's
is being
the
proposed.
proposal. If you guys wanted to add an income limit to your employee program, you certainly could do that. If you wanted to have two programs. If you added an income limit to your employee program, I would almost say you have one program.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add, one of the reasons we do that is our police officers, and as a recruitment retention tool, it's one of our hopes that we'll be able to add that to the list for our police officers where we have the biggest. We also have some higher income positions that would be first-time home buyers in the Verde Valley. Our building official, which has been vacant for a very long time, would clearly be over, if they're single, would be over the 125 limit. I'm stretching my authority right now to get someone in here to fill that position. So it's a needed recruitment tool for city employees, but again, only if authorized by council. So there are positions that it wouldn't make sense, mine. I'm not a first-time home buyer. Of course, if I wait long enough, I'd be eligible again, but I'm not a first-time home buyer. But there are some higher positions, including the building official, where I think it would make a difference in recruiting. Both applicants that we're bringing in this week and next week are from out of state. And we all know how hard it is to find housing here. So anything we could do to help keep them here would be beneficial.
Okay.
Well, real quick, I think I would be okay with two programs. I think it's clear, and we've seen this from some incoming staff in the city of Sedona too, the trouble in finding housing, and you know, maybe she didn't have issues with paying for it, but finding it. And so any program that can help bring employees to Cottonwood where needed would be great. But I've also seen, because I manage two low-income properties here in town, I get a lot of calls from staff that want to come and work at the hospital and this, that, and the other thing, asking me, you know, about renting, and it's low-income housing, so I can't help them. But they also talk to me, because I'm a good listener, about how they can't find anything to buy, or they just can't do this or this. And so I think that having both programs would be a big benefit for the community.
I concur. I think going on a two-pronged approach is appropriate.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for stopping and making sure we were on track with that. Okay, So then the next question we had for you guys, how long should a buyer have to stay employed with the city of Cottonwood if it's the employer program, or with a Cottonwood employer in order to fulfill a retention period? So right now, assistance is tied to employment. And so if you are eligible to buy based on your employment, we would want you to stay in that employment for a period of time before the loan would not be called due immediately. So if you left the employer, we would call the loan due because you have not met your retention period. I want to say Sedona was 7 years, or did they go? Seven. Okay, perfect. I want to say Sedona did 7 years. City of Flagstaff has done 10 years, but that's prorated forgiveness over that retention period. So if somebody left in year 7, they'd only pay back 30% of what they borrowed. And we're not proposing a forgiveness structure for the assistance. So essentially, how long should a retention period be to try and retain employees under this program?
It's my belief that the city employees tend to stay a long time. Am I correct? Okay.
And I also want to keep in mind that they're not eligible until they've been here for a year. So for the City of Cottonwood Employer Assisted Housing Program. So you add that to your retention period because you couldn't even get the assistance until you met that pre-employment guideline.
And that seems to be at cross purposes with the recruiting tool. So I don't know, I understand there's been a lot of support from my fellow council members, but I don't know that I've got enough information in the packet. It's a recruiting tool, but you have to live here and work here a year. So I'm not quite sure how valuable of a recruiting tool it is to have this second program.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, fair question. It takes a while to find the house to start with, and just that promise of that benefit is pretty significant. Payout bonuses, when you do hiring bonuses in PD, some are at 6 months, but most are after a year of employment. So any special benefit in recruitment and retention is usually not until after a year of employment. Police officers are on probation for a year, I believe. Some of our departments at 6 months, but it's not uncommon not to get a benefit like that until a year of employment. And as long as it's a commitment on our behalf, it does help as a recruitment tool.
Do we have the criteria, am I just not seeing in the packet, for the eligibility or how we're awarding the money in the employee program? Is it still first come, first served?
I believe that's the proposal. And it might not be clear in that packet, so we should add that. But yes, that's how we've done it in other municipalities because the goal is to spend the money. And so it would be based on your eligibility, meeting eligibility criteria, making sure that you found a home and the closing date is within a certain period of time, usually 6 months or less, to allow for new construction if that's happening, and that your rate is locked and all of that kind of stuff. So typically, we've done it first come, first served, and then that way we can show demand, we can show utilization, and we're not holding a pot of money to the side that's then not utilized. It would be the concern.
So it's first come, first serve to start the process?
So we reserve funds for somebody when they are determined eligible based on whatever eligibility criteria there is. If it's income eligibility or employment eligibility or whatever, we're going to verify it. If you're the buyer, you're going to find a house, right? So you have to be under contract before we're going to reserve any funds because you could be out shopping for years and why did we reserve funds for you? And then the last piece of it is going to be your loan. We want to make sure that your proposed mortgage meets the affordability guidelines outlined in the lender agreement. So we would have your individual household eligibility, the property eligibility, it's in Verde Valley or it's located wherever it needs to be, for example, and then the loan eligibility. And once all three of those are done, we take that package to our volunteer committee of lenders and they review and approve it, and then that's when we issue an award letter and officially reserve funds. It sounds complicated, but you're going to go through those process anyway, right? You're going to get loan criteria, you're going to find your house and be under contract, and then you're going to be looking to close. So we're in line with the normal process. We don't delay things unless someone comes to us at the 11th hour and says, I'm already under contract, I found my house, and I want to close tomorrow. We would probably delay that because we'd have to get the eligibility figured out.
So essentially, we're looking at, if we were to approve this in October, sitting on the 400,000 for 12-month period?
No, because someone could be eligible right away because they've already worked with y'all for a year.
Okay. I'm not the smartest one in the room,
No,
so.
I'm with you. We actually just did, side note, Housing Solutions of Northern Arizona, we've got 12 employees. We are a very large employer. Our board of directors just approved an employer-assisted housing program for our staff. We talked about it in May. I had 3 employees looking to purchase at that time, totally discouraged, nothing on the market, giving up, multiple cash buyers offers. And by the time we went to approve the program in July, all 3 of them were already under contract and found a house, and I needed to like boot, scoot, and boogie to get the program approved with their lenders so we can provide assistance. So the thing about this program is that you might look at your market now and go, oh my gosh, there's nothing to buy. But y'all just approved another development or a phase of a development. And so things change, lending guidelines change, interest rates change, developments change. And if you have the program accessible and ready, then you never know when your buyers are going to be ready to go. So it worked out very well that we spent all the allocated money in about 2 weeks. It was lovely. But it was kind of a surprise for us.
And I did have a question, Mayor, because I didn't think it was a done deal that we're allocating $400,000 to the program. I thought that was all of the money we had to use for housing initiatives, programs, et cetera. And I don't want to put it all in one project.
Correct. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember, we have 1.4 million. So we have 1.4 million set aside for grant funding and set aside in grants from the CARES money, in addition to your undesignated reserves and all that other cash. So we have that 1.4. We're suggesting 400. It can be less, it can be more. We are suggesting that is also how we're paying for the housing manager. So some of that money will come down out of there. So maybe we're 1.3 right now. And then we'll have other programs for you later in the year, hopefully. But we also have almost 4 million in undesignated reserves that we expect to have at the end of the year that we could put towards another housing project, whether it's buying land and starting the land trust or helping a developer get started in some low-income housing. I think there's lots of choices, and right now we have funds available that without a stretch to any other budget area.
Okay.
So retention period?
So we do have a lot of long-term staff here, so I think I would go towards the 10-year mark for retention period.
Yeah, I'm in the 7 to 10 year range.
I like the 10-year with the year payback that they did earlier.
Okay.
I just don't know. I don't know what how long the staff stays, and I don't have a clue, so to speak.
Yeah,
Well, if I can ask, now we're not setting up a forgiveness program, but the Flagstaff does 10 years. And because they forgive every year 10%, but Flagstaff does 10 years. I don't know that I have, we usually require 2 years for every year of bonus or something like that is usually, so 7 years seems like a long time to meet, but 10 years is not unheard of. And all that would do would either trigger repayment or she's going to propose something else later, interest rate thing. So it's not like they have to leave their house necessarily, depending on what we decide to do. And if they leave, we get our money back and we start over to the next one. So it's.
So to clarify, after the retention period, we're not expecting them to pay that money back anymore. Then.
Correct. So after 10 years, if you choose 10 years, so at year 11 they leave and go to work for the city of Sedona, they would not have to immediately repay us back or trigger a default.
But it would still require repayment in the future when they sell, they refinance to pull cash out, or they no longer own or occupy.
So there's always essentially a lien on it for them.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. So am I hearing 10 years or do we still need more? Okay, 10 years I think is what we're.
Okay. All right. The next question. Do you want to limit employees who can work remotely? I have to be honest, this one came out of left field for me with the Sedona City Council. They did not want to provide the assistance to folks who were 100% remote, who can live in Nebraska and work for a Sedona employer. So they said that somebody had to be working physically inside City of Sedona city limits for a minimum of 30 hours a week. It allowed some flexibility if there was some like work from home options. I'm not sure what you all do for the city of Cottonwood. It applied to both city employees and to the community employees, but they didn't want to just incentivize home ownership for virtual employees.
Right. Yeah.
And are you comfortable with a 30-hour-a-week requirement there to give some flexibility to in-home, or 20 hours, or?
I think Ron requires 60 hours a week. But
On call?
As long as I'm compliant with FLSA.
That makes sense.
Council, can we ask that question to staff? The first thing that came to mind was transit drivers who work 29 hours. They're technically part-time. It is one of our hardest jobs to fill. Mostly, though, it's filled with retirees, so I don't know that they would qualify anyways. So I don't know if this is a great tool for them. But we do have a few positions, transit drivers that work 29 hours. Any other positions? No, yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys really know the needs of our employees better than we do, so I mean, I'm open to suggestions.
I'm okay with 30 hours. 29 would give us a little more flexibility for, we call them part-time because they're not eligible for the health care, but they could be eligible for this. Again, most of our drivers are retired from other jobs and are probably not looking for a home, but it would be another tool.
Why couldn't we do the 29 hours for transit drivers and 30 hours for everybody else? Why would that be a problem?
It just adds another layer of explanation, but we can explain it, that's fine.
That seems like splitting hairs.
Okay, so we do have some other 29. That's what I thought we do. So I would just suggest either it's 29 or 30, and I'm okay with either one. Our 29-hour employees are considered part-time employees. 30 hours and above are full-time employees, having to do with the healthcare laws, but whatever pleases council. To me, every tool you give us helps, but a lot of those 29 hours probably have another job in the valley anyway.
Right.
So it's up to council on this one.
29 is fine with me.
Yeah, I'd be okay with 29 too.
Council, heads nodding, shaking.
I want a little bit more information down the road, so I think for now, looking into it at the 29 is fine, but.
And then can I clarify, so we had said full-time employees, but we'll change that definition to include 29-hour a week as eligible for this program, period. Okay.
Because we just, again, we don't have an income limit or analysis for our city employees, but then I just heard somebody saying, well, they might work 29 hours for us, but they might work somewhere else. So we could be using this for somebody who makes a lot more than I think the intent of the program is.
So if that were the case, then would you need to have proof of their total household income in order for anything, or it doesn't matter because they work for us?
So we wouldn't look at income as eligibility. We would look at income for housing ratios to make sure that it's not more than what they can afford on a monthly basis. So if they're working full-time in Phoenix, 40 hours a week, 29 hours here, driving a transit, and then they want to buy in Camp Verde, they would qualify under the program. Or if they had a spouse who was contributing to the household income as well. So you could have, we help folks in Flagstaff who are like your police officers. Sometimes they're over $100,000 in household income because their spouse works somewhere else. With overtime, police officers seem to have a lot of opportunity for that. And so it's not income based. We're helping folks at quite high incomes. It's really a recruitment and retention tool then.
Mr. Mayor, Council, if I can add, our 29-hour employees aren't rolling in the dough. They're usually trying to find a full-time job somewhere or are having two jobs to make ends meet. I don't know of any 29-hour employee that would be abusive of this program, in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay. The next question. The eligible borrower has to work for the City of Cottonwood or a Cottonwood employer, but where can they buy? Do you want to limit it to City of Cottonwood city limits? Do you want to broadly define it as Verde Valley and we can identify zip codes that are allowed? Is there a different geographic area that you would feel comfortable allowing someone to purchase in?
Some kind of commuting distance criteria?
What did Sedona decide and what does Flagstaff rules have?
So Flagstaff is the City of Flagstaff city limits. And so that excludes some of our more affordable places to purchase like Belmont, Kachina Village, and Donny Park. They do allow those areas for employees, but not for the community program. Sedona has set the Verde Valley and defined it based on zip codes. So it includes Rimrock, Camp Verde, Cottonwood, Oak Creek, Sedona, kind of north of the mountain, essentially.
Seems logical in my mind.
Yeah, I'm thinking we probably have to.
We definitely can't do city limits.
No.
You could do all of Yavapai County if you want. That didn't seem to resonate in Sedona. So, yeah.
I think Verde Valley.
Commute, okay. Yeah. All right, perfect. Then that keeps it consistent, and we'll define it based on zip codes then.
Great.
What's the right amount of assistance? So we had proposed initially $20,000 per household. This is really now a two-part question. What's the right amount of assistance for households under 100% area median income, and what's the right amount of assistance for households between 100 and 125% if you'd like to tier it?
Again, what are some of our other cities that already implemented this program doing?
Yeah, not Cottonwood, that's y'all, sorry. Sedona's up to 25,000. They increased it between when we first proposed it and then when it went to council. City of Flagstaff is 15,000 for the community program and 10,000 for employees. So they've done it a little bit differently. The Sheriff's Department with Coconino County is 20,000. Trying to think if there's any others that I know of, but those are the big ones. So kind of between 10,000 on the low end and 25,000 on the high end.
How does this program, the programs that repay themselves? I guess Flagstaff does not. They don't have a full repayment program.
So Flagstaff's done it two different ways. For the employee program, it's forgiven on a prorated basis over the 10 years. So $10,000 in assistance, you forgive $1,000 a year. After 10 years, it's forgiven. For the community program, it's never forgiven. It is always repaid, and it's repaid based on an equity share model, based on the amount, percent of assistance to the purchase price, and then based on what the sales price is in the future.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I would like this program to be as sustainable as possible. So if we blow I'm just going to say 400,000 because that's what was proposed. That's a decision point for later. But if we were to blow that within the first, 5 years, but then the program doesn't start to repay itself for another, couple years after that, then we're going to have a gap that we'll have to supplement from some source. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. It does. The average length of homeownership is about 7 years. You're going to have people on the low end, and then you're going to have people who live there for 20 years. So that's the tricky part with down payment assistance that's not amortized repayment, is that you just don't know when it's repaid. But that's the benefit to the buyer, is that there's not a monthly payment and it's not counted in their housing ratio. So that helps with the affordability. But it is then, you get it back when you get it back. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's hard to budget for that.
Okay. Do you have any sense at all of how far the proposed $400,000 could stretch at a $20,000 assistance amount?
That would be 20, right? 400,000 divided by 20 is 20 loans out there if everyone used the full amount. I would think that's probably about 2 years. If you did one loan a month, you'd be at 12 households. I'm not sure if we're going to have 10 families lined up outside our door ready to buy right away, or if it's going to take a little while to gain traction. to get more employers to tell their employees about it and to get some excitement built. We find that the best advertising is word of mouth. So once a few folks start buying, then their friends and their neighbors and their coworkers and their long lost brothers and sisters come to us because they've heard about the program, which is lovely. But that takes a little while to get going.
Okay. I think 20,000 seems to be right, and I'm assuming we can adjust it if it's either not being used or being used too much.
But if we're doing a tiered thing, then maybe the 20,000 is for the less than 100%, and maybe we do a 15,000 for the less than 125%.
Yep. Or 20,000 and 25,000. Yeah, that would be kind of in that range. So 15 and 20, 20 and 25, kind of however y'all want to do it.
We have certain jobs that require employees to live within a certain driving distance to the city.
We do. Response times, utilities, public works. You can't require that of PD or fire. State law changed last year before. But those two departments, yeah, we do have a response time for on-call.
I'm just wondering, because those are, I don't know where they are on the income scale, if that's going to make a difference in what they can buy or can't buy, and if changing that amount they're eligible for is going to affect whether or not we can get more people to come in here and stay.
Either program, I think, will have an impact, whether it's 15 or 20,000. Kind of go back to the example she gave of needing about 20,000 to close in some of those. So, and this is a matching program, which is the next question. So it's not, they've also got to come up with some of the skin in the game, but I think whatever council does will have an impact.
Okay. So are we leaning towards 15, 20 or 20, 25, 15, 20? Okay.
It's always easier to go up than to go down. So, okay, so 15 and then 20,000 tiered.
And the tiers on AMI.
Mm-hmm.
So for the employee program, do you want that 15 or do you want that 20? I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Mayor, I didn't hear that.
I think 20 for employees and 15 for residents or people who are working in Cottonwood.
So this is just kind of my thinking right now is, I mean, this is going to be a tool in your tool belt. Any of these things that we're struggling over on numbers, I would like to see a presentation come from you, staff, based on what you know your needs are and what would be helpful for you to kind of help suggest this would be good for us.
I can tell you without a doubt, 15,000 is impactful. 20,000 is just that much more impactful. But this is a great program. It is used in the Valley. There's a program I believe in might be Glendale, one of the cities, and they actually buy the house for police officers and have a program like that. So these programs are effective. They're effective as a recruitment tool. They're effective at retention, whether it's 15 or 20. You know, if council wants it, it's easier to go up than down. I mean, if council wants to stay at 15, so we're not getting more than any resident, I'm very okay with that. 20,000 is, you know, that much more helpful, but in fairness, to make sure city employees aren't getting anything that residents aren't getting, I'm very okay with 15,000, but as it pleases council. Either program will have a positive effect.
I think 15 is prudent for city employees. Government employees tend to be better paid than most in our community, and we can always go up if it doesn't seem like it's working as a recruitment tool, and perhaps we need to up the ante. Does that seem reasonable to council?
It is if the next line there, so does that mean if we're giving $15,000, their contribution is $7,500?
So it depends on how you want your match to go. If you said, for example, you wanted the cities and the higher income folks to be a 3-to-1 match, then they come in with 5,000, get 15,000 matched, and then under 100% AMI could be a 4-to-1 match with the same 5,000. So that way you're not making lower income folks have to come in with more money in order to get the assistance, because that might be counterproductive. Okay, good. All right. Woo-hoo. 3-to-1 match. 3-to-1 and then 4-to-1. And then folks can always come in with more. Like that is a great way to increase buying power. We got through all these questions, so thank you. Okay, so then the last question is a really exciting, complicated one, is repayment. I saved the hardest one to last because you guys are experts now in down payment assistance programs. We're proposing 2 thoughts for you all tonight. The first one is what we do already with the City of Flagstaff's Community Homebuyer Assistance Program, and is what's proposed for Sedona. Equity, repayment is based on equity share or appreciation of the home during the ownership period. If a home buyer got $10,000 to buy a $100,000 house, I know it doesn't exist, but work with me, then that's 10%. And then when they sell the house, it's now selling for $150,000, they pay back 10% of that, so it's $15,000. So they're sharing in that market rate appreciation that they got to take advantage of because they were able to get into the home to begin with, okay? That one is really great because buyers up front kind of resonate with that repayment, right? They know or think or are likely to have a home appreciate, so they're a little bit more comfortable with sharing in that appreciation as far as increased repayment. The drawback to it is that you don't know what you're repaying. And so I will tell you, folks are fine with it on the front end. And then, you know where this is going, right? And then surprisingly, they're ready to sell their house and we're like, great, here's a calculation based on this percentage and you owe back $20,000 now, and they're sure that that was not true because it's a little unclear on the front end how much you're going to repay on the back end because we don't know what the market rate appreciation is. So that's kind of the downside to it. Another option would be to charge an interest rate. They do this in King County, Washington, and so it's a simple payment, it's a simple deferred interest rate. So for example, if the city of Cottonwood charged 2.5%, that's the math up there, I'm so sorry it's so small, simple interest on that $20,000 loan, then it would accrue $500 in interest annually. And the nice thing about this is that then you could incentivize that retention period because you could reduce the interest rate at the end of the retention period to encourage people to stay. So for example, if at the end of 10 years the interest rate goes down to 1.5% annually, now they're accruing $300 instead of $500. And you can retroactively do that over the first 10 years during the retention period. So it gives that incentive to stay. And then if somebody wants to change jobs and can't sell and can't refinance and can't repay right away, then they just have a higher interest rate accruing until one of those things could happen for repayment. So it's not as attractive to a buyer up front, I'll be honest, because now you know what you're paying on an annual basis and you're like, I'm not sure I like that so much. But it's clearer up front. And so it's very nice to say to a borrower, hey, by the way, you know and agree that based on the amount of this loan and this interest rate, this is what's going to be added to your payment when you sell or refinance or no longer own or occupy. The other thing is and I didn't put this in here, but we need to make sure that it would only come out of proceeds of sale or equity in the home. So let's say interest accrues, the market tumbles, everyone's upside down, and they can't pay back $500 a year over 5 years or whatever it is, $2,500, because there's no appreciation or equity in that home. The city would not come after them for a deficiency balance and impact their credit. I hope not. I mean, no other city is doing that. So that would be a benefit to this kind of loan, is that you're not a traditional lender who's going to go after the full balance owed, even if there's no equity in the property.
So I have a question on that. So essentially, if the home sells at a lower price than the purchase price, we don't get our payment back.
So in scenario number 1, what we do is we lien the amount plus the difference between that amount and the percentage. So you're always owed that amount, but if the market tanks enough that they're upside down, including your amount and anything they've paid off over the life of the loan, they're not going to get any equity out of it until they pay you back. So you might have to settle for less than the $20,000 owed. It's not likely because they've been adding to that equity through their payments, through their mortgage payments. So they're kind of protected a little bit to market fluctuations that decrease, because you're not going to go after a deficiency balance, but you're likely to get repaid because there's not a huge chance that it's going to go down past what they've paid off in equity as well.
Mr. Mayor, can I clarify? So any equity they have, so they owe us $20,000, they make $20,000, we get the whole $20,000.
Yeah.
So that first bottom line that they owe the city is first off.
Well, the mortgage is first off,
Right.
to be fair.
Yeah.
Like Wells Fargo or Chase is getting paid first. And then you guys would be second before they get any money from the sale of the home.
Right.
I like the equity share. And I think there should be a very clear disclosure up front that they have to read and sign that stays in their file to show them
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
10 years down the road that they.
In addition to the promissory note and the recorded deed of trust, and then we also have an award letter that says, I understand repayment is based on, yeah, we do it now.
So then is there an early repayment option?
Yeah, there's no prepayment penalty at all. So someone could pay anytime they want to. Say they win the lottery tomorrow, they can pay y'all off and walk away. You may want to say they can't pay it off early unless they pay it in whole. I don't know if you want someone coming in making $50 payments each month. That would be a tracking nightmare, but there's no prepayment penalty.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with the equity sharing program. I think that would be the biggest bang too for our investment.
Yeah, you have the most upside from that, right? So if prices double, then you're gonna get double your money back, which is, potentially exciting, except for the fact that now prices have doubled. So, okay.
Is there a council member that disagrees with that, or are we all pretty much on the same page? Okay.
Okay. All right. So then those are all the hard decisions, unless Ron has another one.
So if I'm not mistaken, that leaves the question, repayment when? Because this repayment occurs at sale. So if the person leaves employment early but continues to live in the house, so they move from, doesn't ever happen, but they leave our police department and go work for Sedona's police department. They were an employee program, but they don't sell their house because they're living in Cottonwood. Are the requirements of employment going to trigger repayment, or is it only the selling and those kinds of things?
If it's during the retention period, it would trigger repayment, right, in those 10 years. Let's say, however, that somebody doesn't go to Sedona for a job, they get ill, and they can't work anymore for the city of Cottonwood. Technically, that triggers repayment. However, you might want to administratively give staff some leeway in enforcing that payment. You always have the note in the deed. It's always secured against the property, so you're gonna get repaid as long as there's equity in the house. But if it causes a financial hardship to the household, it may not be what y'all want to force somebody to repay $20,000 when now they don't have income and they're battling cancer, for example. So I do point that out, is that yes, in theory, it would trigger repayment, but there could be times that that's not feasible. And so at the end of the day, the worst case scenario is you don't get paid, they're technically in default, and you don't foreclose on them because you're gonna get your money down the road.
But this is a good long-term real estate investment that pays off, and the longer it goes on, the more appreciation there's likely to be, so.
Yeah.
It's a good model.
We had millions of dollars, we can just invest a whole bunch of money in equity share and make lots of, help more people and be awesome. So yeah, if you're comfortable in those lender guidelines, then we'll give some administrative leeway for enforcing that repayment or allowing reasons not to based on health or whatever it is.
Sure, that seems reasonable.
Okay. Cool. Did I miss anything else, Ron? Okay, so then the last question, I know when I came and talked to y'all before, I think when you said details, hopefully we've addressed most or some of them. I'm happy to answer any others. I think a big detail that you're probably asking about without asking it is how much does it cost to administer a program like this? We're proposing $25,000 annually to do these things. To do the homebuyer education and counseling, we would follow HUD protocols, which, oh my gosh, kill me now. If you'd like to come see what those are, I'm happy to walk you through them. All sorts of things, including What's the most recent thing? I have to submit a succession plan and a disaster plan by Monday, so that's awesome. But we follow industry standards and all of that kind of stuff. We'll do the outreach and marketing, primarily focusing on the low-hanging fruit, which is your employers, right? So if eligibility is based on employment, we're gonna go chat with those guys to hopefully get them to talk to their employees about it, get into HR departments, et cetera. Program design, including creation of loan documents. So we're gonna need a promissory note, a deed of trust, a hold harmless agreement, all of those kind of fun things. We have templates for them. We need to adjust it based on these guidelines, so we'll work on those. We need to make sure those loan documents are approved by first mortgage lenders, because it doesn't matter if you're gonna give someone $15,000 or $20,000 if they can't get a first mortgage. So we work with those lenders to approve the programs. We're working on an online client application portal right now. We're converting. So folks can apply online seamlessly and not have to mail in an application that we get to hand enter. It's very exciting. Outreach documents, eligibility determination. So going through these things and making sure all the boxes are checked. Do they work here? What's their income guidelines? Is the loan affordable? Is the house in that geographic boundary? We talked about all of that. And then loan administration. So getting the loan documents to the title company, making sure the buyer contribution is documented, funding the loan if you need us to, and then asking for reimbursement or however that works out. And then while we're under contract, we would also propose to do loan servicing, another fun thing. And so this would be somebody wants to pay off, right? So those payoff requests, somebody wants to refinance their first mortgage to lower their interest rate or to reduce their payment. It would be subordinating the mortgage behind the new first mortgage. All of those kinds of questions we're happy to field and manage, while we're working with y'all. So that's kind of the scope of work that we're proposing to do. And the cost is $25,000 a year is what we're asking for.
And Mr. Mayor, Council, that'll come back in form of a contract late in October.
And that seems very reasonable to me. Can I ask a different question though, real quick? So I manage properties here in town and I have employees that work for me, but our corporate offices are in another state. Would they be considered to be working for a Cottonwood employer?
I would think yes.
As it pleases council, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Naren, but we would envision that if they're working inside the city limits, we did not make mention of where the company's headquartered out of. We just said employment. That goes back to the question about they have to be physically working inside the city limits.
So we would probably ask for like their office location or where they predominantly report to work.
Thank you.
And then have that verified by an employer as well. So it's not just, Devonna said she works in Cottonwood, I'm sure it's fine. Yeah.
Sorry.
Any other questions you have for me?
No. Council?
Awesome.
No. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I appreciate the robust questions and conversation, and we look forward to working with y'all if you are so agreeable. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Oh.
All right, well, that was good. I think you got the direction that you need then?
Yes.
Staff, okay. It's very exciting. All right. Well, let's move on then, and all motion to pay the claims and adjustments.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion. Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next is discussion, consideration, possible legal action to authorize the purchase of the rough cut building located at 635 North Main Street, along with 2 adjacent vacant parcels of land for completion and use as a new city hall pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes. I'm not going to read them all. The council may vote to convene an executive session, discuss this matter, and/or provide direction to staff prior to taking legal action in open session. So, council, would you like to have any discussion out here? Would you like to move to convene into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Matthews made the motion. Councilmember Naren seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're going to go into executive session and be back out to make a motion.